I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.
This year, Candace Owens called out Ben Shapiro on Twitter for acting unhinged on his Israel take and how they at the Daily Wire had to accommodate Ben being in his feelings for weeks. That role seemed to have ebbed, but many years before Candace Owens revealed Ben to be a whiny snowflake, a British journalist, Andrew O'Neill, was the first to expose how thin-skinned and into his feelings Ben Shapiro could be. It turned out the guy who says facts don't care about your feelings gets into his feelings whenever the facts are not in his favor. For context, Andrew O'Neill is a conservative British journalist who once interviewed Ben Shapiro on the BBC. He made the mistake of asking Ben Shapiro tough questions about his position, and that was enough to cause Ben Shapiro to unravel into a muddy pool of snowflake. The clip starts with Andrew questioning Ben on some of his policy positions, which he characterized as extreme. Ben reads such a line of questioning as hostile, and instead of answering them honestly, pigeonholes Andrew as a leftist.
Some of the ideas that are popular in your side of politics would seem to take us back to the Dark Ages, Georgia, new abortion laws, which you are much in favor of, that a woman who miscarries could get 30 years. A Georgian woman who travels to another state for an abortion procedure could get 10 years. These are extreme hard policies.
Well, okay, a couple of things. One, I'm not sure. I mean, frankly, I don't know whether are you an objective journalist or are you an opinion journalist?
First off, that's a dumb question. Are you an objective journalist or are you an opinion journalist? Is the interviewer supposed to say, well, I'm an opinion journalist, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt? Second, it just speaks to the level of unpreparedness of Ben Shapiro to take on an interview with someone he didn't do the basic research on to see where they might stand on issues.
I'm a journalist that asks questions.
Okay, so you're a supposedly objective journalist calling policies with which you disagree barbaric and suggesting only one side of the political aisle has ideas. So I just want to point out that I wish you would at least be honest in your own biases.
How did Ben come to the conclusion that Andrew disagreed with those policies? The problem with people like Ben is that they are perpetually on debate me bro mode. They see everything as an attack on their position, so they act defensively. And the way that they do that is by trying to discredit their opponents as woke leftists. That falls flat, saying Andrew O'Neill is anything but woke or leftist. Those are very valid questions that an impartial interviewer can ask. Even though I agree with Ben's position on abortion, if I were interviewing him, I would be asking those same tough questions, mostly because I want to see the strength of the reasoning behind his argument. It also makes for a better interview than throwing softball questions at your guest. But because Ben Shapiro exists in a binary framework of left versus right, as Andrew rightly points out, he got triggered instead of calmly defending his position.
Mr. Shapiro, I know that broadcasting in America is now so polarized that on one program you only have the left and another one you just have the right. My job is to question those who have strong views and put an alternative to them. If you were an anti-abortion person, I would be putting pro-abortion questions to you. But you are
really would you call the pro-choice position?
So why don't you just answer my question,
sir? I'm happy to answer your question. Please answer this one. Would you suggest that a late-term abortion is brutal?
I'm not taking a view on this issue. I'm asking you the question.
Sir, you just suggested the pro-life position is inherently brutal and terrible, so I'm asking you, as an objective journalist, would you ask the same question to a pro-choice advocate by calling their position brutal and horrible?
Asking you.
Now, Ben, instead of answering the question, tries to reframe it and get his interviewer to box himself in, which is frankly irrelevant as it was not a debate.
What I'm asking you is that why is it that a bill banning abortions after a woman has been pregnant for 6 weeks is not a return to the Dark Ages? What's your answer?
My answer is something called science. Human life exists at conception. It ought to be protected. Now, back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you, as a journalist, are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the Dark Ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left?
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it.
Ben goes on to answer the question, an answer which I agree with. By the way, I believe human life begins at conception, thus making abortion at any stage akin to murder. But watch as Ben Shapiro immediately pivots from that important position to attacking the credibility of the BBC. This whole whataboutism by Ben Shapiro is so lame. Andrew has no responsibility to call out the left, saying there were no leftists on the panel. It was Ben Shapiro and his ideas that was up for scrutiny. Why does he want to drag in a party that wasn't invited into the conversation?
As you say in your book, you say that there's quite a key phrase, we are so angry at each other right now. But as I say, aren't you part of that anger? Aren't you encouraging that anger? For example, you described Mr. Obama's State of the Union address in 2012 as fascist mentality in action.
Well, I think that if you want to argue with the characterization, then we can talk about what exactly his State of the Union address said. Is it charged language in politics? Sure. The problem that I have is not with charged language in politics, which I'm generally in favor of. I like a robust public debate and a very loud and spirited public debate. I have no problem with that whatsoever. What I'm talking about is the assumption that people with whom we disagree politically are inherently of bad character or, in your words, want to bring us back to the dark ages.
The irony of Ben Shapiro decrying that politics is so heated and angry while everything he does eats up the polity and makes people more angry. The lack of self-awareness is astonishing.
But again, it was your description of the State of the Union address in 2012 as fascist.
The wording of President Trump's 2012 address was
He's so flustered.
bad and wrong.
That's all. There are plenty of things that are bad and wrong, but it doesn't make them fascist.
Well, I suppose that's true. If you'd like to read me the column out loud, I suppose I can critique it for you.
At this point, Andrew was just pointing out Ben's silliness one after the other, and this seemed only to trigger Ben more. Watching Ben get triggered by his own words being read back to him is just epic.
Oh, well, again, with Mr. Obama, you said, and you're Jewish yourself, I only mention that because to put this in context, the Jews who vote for Obama are, by and large, Jews in name only. Ginos, you call them.
My statement was based on the fact that Jews in the United States, as an ethnic group, are largely irreligious, which is true by every single poll. Jews are the most irreligious group in the United States. As an Orthodox Jew who actually takes Judaism seriously, the point that I am making is that most Jews who are ethnically Jewish are not religiously Jewish in any context.
No. The point you were making is that Jews who vote for Obama are Jews in name only.
I said that, yes, that is correct. That Jews who voted for Barack Obama, a progenitor of the Iran deal, a person who was cracking down on religious liberty, a person who spent much of his career as president of the United States attempting to deprive Israel of the necessities to defend itself, that people, Jews who voted for President Obama, by and large, cared about Judaism far less than they did about other priorities.
Did you said they should turn their badge in as a Jew?
Yes, I believe that if you are somebody who takes Judaism seriously, that comes along with ideological commitment.
I mean, I guess.
Also, I hope you're having fun, by the way, going through every old tweet that I've ever sent to try and do gotcha questions. But if you'd like to have a discussion about my general philosophy or things I've done in, say, I don't know, that's 2012, so it's now 2019. If you'd like to discuss something I've done in, say, like the past 5 years, why don't we do that?
As Ben gets more triggered, Andrew remains unfazed and just keeps going in hard on Ben by reading what Ben wrote.
Because your book is a criticism of how angry America is and how America has to do better. And I'm simply
I have an entire list on my website, sir. On my list, I have an entire website of dumb, bad things that I've said. I'm simply trying to point out some of the things you've said that seem to me to help to stoke that anger. For example, you said Israelis like to build, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. Well, as I say in an article entitled, "Here's a list of all the giant, bad, dumb things I've ever said."
Was that dumb?
Well, yes, that's a dumb tweet. And not only, but it is also important to mention that the next few tweets clarify that tweet is specifically referring to the Hamas leadership, which, by the way, a BBC I've seen is relatively reticent to condemn.
No, actually, it wasn't. What you went on to do and say, you are correct about the slur on Arabs. It's not all Arabs that want to live in open sewage and blow things up. It's just Palestinians. You went on to say.
It says the ones who take sides against Israel in the Israel-Palestinian conflict.
Population is rotten to the core, you went on to say. Not Hamas, the Palestinian Arab population.
I say that by poll numbers, they elected Hamas. They educate their children in school that Israel should be obliterated, sir.
I guess.
If you want to read, honestly, this is a giant waste of time in the sense that the entire interview is designed for you to shout slogans or old things that I've said at me. I don't see how this forwards.
Shout slogans? Andrew didn't shout. He read in as calm a voice as possible Ben's own tweet. It is often said that people hate hearing a recording of their own voice. Well, it seems Ben hates it when his ideas are being read to him, maybe because his ideas are not well thought out and can easily be deconstructed.
You talk about undermining the public discourse. It seems to me that simply going through and finding lone things that sound bad out of context and then hitting people with them is a way for you to make a quick buck on BBC off the fact that I'm popular and no one has ever heard of you.
There are not many bucks to be made on the BBC, unlike American broadcasting, Mr. Shapiro.
Ben has tried every high school debating tactics on Andrew, and it just seemed to roll right off him, and it's a free fall from here on out.
The point I'm trying to make is that your words are hardly designed to produce the consensus and understanding that the book seems to want to produce. That's my point, that you write about, Judeo-Christian culture and so on, but so much of what you've said in the past would seem to turn its back on Judeo-Christian culture.
You're lecturing me on Judeo-Christian culture after you call the pro-life position barbaric?
I just asked you a question.
All he does is evade.
And I asked you a question. You failed to answer a single one of mine. Frankly, I find this whole thing a waste of time. If you want to read the book and critique the book, why don't you read and critique the book? If you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me. Frankly, I don't care. I don't frankly give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you until I briefed myself for this. But that's not the issue. You have a
then
new
why the hell
book
are you
out,
interviewing
and
me,
it's an interesting book. But my point is, your book claims that
society... Well, it'd be nice if you would quote it from time to time.
Your book is... Well, actually, I've done so several times, and I'm about to do so again, if you would let me just finish the question. Your book claims that society is turning its back on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah,
what are those values? What are the values it's turning its back on?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.
Good Lord, that was a violation that should be illegal. Henry used Ben's words, logic, and common sense. And how did Ben react to that? He got triggered. Does this mean that Ben is allergic to common sense and logic? It sure seems so. The facts don't care about your feelings guy has shown that he runs on nothing but feelings. Now, if you're looking for something fun and exciting to read, check out my crime fiction novel, which features a debate on race and colonialism. Grab a copy and enjoy the read. The link is in the description of the video. So that's the video. If you like what we do on this channel, consider becoming a channel member or patron. However, your likes, shares, and views are just as valued.